The concept of aswang, encanto, and multo has been part of the Philippine culture for years. Stories of these creatures spreading havoc and terror have been told by people who claim to have come across them. The aswang is one of the most terrifying monsters in the Philippines. It is said that these monsters appear as humans by day and take their true ghastly form at night. In general, the aswang can be used to denote the entire menagerie of evil creatures in the Philippine folklore. Encanto, on the other hand, are environmental spirits characterized as spirit sources like sirens, dark beings, elves, and more. Lastly, the multo is the soul of a dead person that has returned to the human world. They return because they would want to finish or take revenge on people who wronged them. Although there exist different encounters, there never really is a concrete description of what these creatures look like, only imprecise pictures. What we know, however, is that, according to tales, these creatures have capabilities and powers that can cause ill-starred events to their prey. According to Husserl, we live our life with a ready acceptance to the world, which is the reason why we live in captivation. If we do away with any preconceived view or belief about the world around us, then we will be able to have a direct seeing of the essences. Phenomenology here deals with the meaning or understanding of the object in our experience. Phenomenological reduction requires us to leave or withdraw our common sense beliefs and preconceived notions about the world and look at things as they appear in consciousness, whether or not our object of consciousness exists. So, how does this connect to aswang, encanto, and multo? First, when we think of these creatures, we usually think of them appearing in dark and creepy places. We may also have an idea of what they look like based on the things that we have seen in movies or have read in books, without necessarily having seen these creatures in reality. The characteristics that they supposedly have are just merely what we imagine them to have. They can be conceived of having all kinds of characteristics, but we cannot fully know whether they have the characteristics that we perceive because these creatures may not exist at all. But if we can say that if it does exist, then it will have the properties that we imagine them to have. The concept of the existence of the aswang, encanto, and multo dates back even to the pre-Hispanic era. Back then, the religion that our people had was mostly of the belief in the anito, or the spirit of our ancestors. It is said that we should maintain a peaceful relationship with the anito, or else some form of catastrophic or unfortunate event will be experienced. This is where the aswang, encanto, and multo come in. Like what Husserl said, our mental state would always have to be directed to something. In this case, our fear will necessitate an object of fear, which are the creatures that were aforementioned. There had to be an explanation as to how those grave unfortunate events would happen. Thus, the idea of what we know now as some form of gory beings that will haunt us if we do not stay mindful of our actions and disrespect the things around us. But still, how can we fear something if we are not sure as to whether or not it exists? This is because we have had past experience and encounters of pain and suffering that has left some sort of trauma and darkness within us. Because of this, the concept of these creatures was feared by people for they didn't want to experience graver instances of darkness and suffering. So in the past, so that individuals would not encounter these creatures, people were usually warned by adults not to stay out too late or come close to forests that they were not familiar with. In this particular instance, what Husserl would want us to do is not to examine the physical and common sense belief about the creatures, but to examine the very essence of their existence. What we know from what we have read and heard is that these creatures can eat our flesh, befall upon us sickness, or even death. For Husserl, these properties do not matter. If we purify the subject further, what constitutes our mental state of fear is not actually the fear of those creatures.
Created using Powtoon.